Welcome in, everyone. Back with you on Fiber Costing Network tonight. We got three guests with us tonight here to answer your questions and talk about the upcoming season in LG. Joining us, the Director of Hockey Operations, the man himself, LG McDonald. Brody, welcome on in. Thanks for doing this again with us.
No, great to be here. Definitely looking forward to doing this stuff. It's lots of fun, and definitely lots of questions to be answered. So let's looking forward to getting started.
And then the CHL Commissioner, Buck. Welcome in, man. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me. Always enjoy, reaching out, talking with the community.
And then recently appointed AHL Commissioner, Slow Gazelle. He'll be kind of in the background doing some stuff, but he's also on the air. Gazelle, welcome in and congrats on the promotion up to AHL this season, man.
Yeah, thanks, Maple. Always a pleasure, buddy.
Yeah, so this show is dedicated to you guys out there listening. If you have any questions or topics that you want to have these guys address for you, feel free to drop it in the chat. I think Gazelle said he might be monitoring it, and Buck, if you are too, so you can kind of filter and vet what questions you want to come through from the chat. Yeah, so last time show was a huge success. If you're listening right now and you don't have, like, if you don't want to listen to it on the VOD on Twitch, the show will be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow. So if you want to listen to it on YouTube, you can. I guess we can jump right in if you guys are ready.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll go ahead here, Gazelle. So first big topic, obviously it's been announced. People want to know about the Q and obviously the E and the whole expansion with the CHL. The first show we did this, or the first time we did this show here on Five for Costing, you guys, I think we asked a question about expanding into summer season. It was very adamant that the league did not want to push expansion into season 42. What changed from that until making the decision that it was a possibility of adding the Q this season or upcoming season?
Buck, you can take it.
So this season we wanted to add the queue because, like, realistically, when we were looking at sign up numbers, we're like, we could do it. And then when it came down to it, everything with COVID, like all the restrictions, they're dropping, at least on the Canadian side. So like people want to enjoy their summers for the first time in 3 years. The game, everyone's just tired of playing the game. It's getting stale and it's sometimes unplayable. And so like sign up numbers are really low. So we're just like, we're not gonna force something that's not gonna work. But we have something that does work, so we're just gonna kind of keep going with it until we have the numbers to justify bringing it back. Now, we're thinking potentially if we run into the same issues again, where we can be like, well, it's great, we do 42 teams, but there's ways we can get 50 teams in. We could do, the WHL and the ECHL and run those two leagues, or we could run like 46 teams and do the ECHL and the QMJHL just to have something different for next season. So, like, we're finding new ways to try and figure out how to get more teams in for the future if we don't have the numbers.
Explain the ECHL logos up here, and I'm not like an expert in the rules. I mean, I kind of have to read some stuff, and I'll ask you guys, obviously, in DMs. But explain. There's been an idea people have passed around about the ECHL being dedicated for some sort of roster status. I think you guys may know what I'm talking about. I don't know. They had said that the ECHL should branch away and be maybe a veteran status or something. Don't quote me, but what's the idea behind that you've seen?
So basically, in real life, the ECHL is a league that sits below the AHL. So the CHL, which is made up of the O, the Q, and the W, is obviously like your junior league. It's all your prospects. It's where the draft pool comes from for the NHL. Once players are over the age of 20 and they're not eligible to play in the league anymore, they have options. So obviously the ECHL is a lower tier than the AHL, which a lot of those players can flock to if they're not drafted. So what we did in the past is we added the ECHL to the CHL tier because that's where the majority of the new player bases were and it's where the higher number of signups were. So it was easier for us to get the players there signed up in the league in that way. And the future plan was always to take that league out, put it above the CHL but below the AHL, and run it as like a veteran amateur kind of league, based off of where it sits in real life. We've tried it before, but we didn't have the sign numbers to make it work. So the goal that I had was to put it in the CHL to build it so we had the numbers to support that team and then branch it out, move it up, and go from there. That was obviously prior to the game being divided onto 4 different consoles and the sign numbers being where they are today. So that's why that idea kind of fizzled out for now. But that's, maybe in the future we'll see something along those lines where that tier is above the C but below the A, and kind of that's where it kind of fits in real life.
Would there be a specific, what do you call it, like veteran, amateur? Would that be restricted to a certain roster status, or would it be open, or how would that work if there has been talks about it? What would be the criteria to be able to play in the E versus playing in the W, O, and the Q?
Yeah, so I think when I looked at it last time, what made the most amount of sense at that time based off sign-up numbers was if it ended up being I think it was veterans and amateurs, and then the CHL would just be what would have been like amateurs and prospects. Kind of that's where the pool would be. So the divisional line would basically be prospect status. So prospects would remain in the CHL, where prospects could never filter into the ECHL, and then management we let them float between statuses, and then there was an overwhelming number of amateur players, so we would kind of could let them float between both leagues and run it that way. So there's definitely a couple different ways to do that, but we're a far cry from the 4,000 signups we had before, so it's likely back to the drawing board when it comes to what we're going to do with the ECHL in the future.
Off topic real fast, Thompson and NAXOG, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. So for someone like me, and this question had gotten asked in the Discord, but I don't follow CHL real life hockey, so how they want to know how would the playoff or the Memorial Cup work with the Q if the Q got added back? How would the format work for the final three teams?
So what we've done in the past, we floated this so many different times, but realistically, what ends up happening is in real life they have a host team. So you have the three winners plus the host team play. They play a round robin, and then the two best, and then play a round robin. Then after the round robin, one plays four, two plays three. Winner of that ends up playing in the final. So that's how they do it in real life. So there's a couple different ways to do it. If we had it in the summer season, we could easily run a 2-week Memorial Cup just based on the fact that there's no like this season's set to end like mid-September. Next season likely wouldn't start till like end of October. So we had the space to run a 2-week Memorial Cup. So realistically, if we had the Q this year, we could have done like 2 rounds, basically two best 7 series that we could have did to do it. A couple different ways to do it. In time, if there's time constraints too, it's easy just to say out of the 3 finalists, the team that had the best regular season finish would be the number 1 seed. Make the other 2 teams play against each other in a playoff. Winner of that plays the 1 seed for the Memorial Cup. A couple different ways to do it like that, but that's in real life. That's how they do it. So, yeah, that's a couple different ways to look at it. It all depends on timing. Is kind of the big thing about it.
Yeah, like I kind of want to match the way like PSN does it. They do like first seed gets a bye, 2, 3 play like a best of 5 on like Sunday, Monday, and then like best of 7 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, something like that. That's what.
Yeah.
But they ask their managers like once they're in like the final like 6 to like 12 teams, like, are you guys cool with playing like potentially 5 days in a row? So
Yeah, it definitely
Um,
comes a time constraint for sure. So
yeah.
is the plan on the back burner right now? Obviously, looking forward past summer season with 23 coming out this fall. The plan is hopefully to add the queue. Expecting people to want to play the game, new features, whatnot. Is that the plan right now to add the queue back come September, October?
I would say definitely, yeah. I'd say that's the way it's going to be if we hope for it. Obviously, PlayStation's going to jump to PlayStation 5 in the fall as well too, so they're going to probably see a hit in numbers as well. The number of people who have PlayStation 5 is a lot lower than the Xbox side, but I definitely think that diving into a new game past this summer season, real NHL starts back up again. I think we definitely see the numbers to be able to add that league by that time, and that's kind of what we're hoping for.
Yeah. And like I said, I have plans if it doesn't work out. So
Yeah, you're right. We have a bunch of different number of teams we could add just to that lower tier to increase, right? You can go from 42 to 46 to 50. There's a bunch of different combinations we could do based on the number of signups, based on the number of interested managers we have as well.
This is a long-term question. Someone had asked this in here though, but they were just asking, if EA comes out with crossplay on NHL in the future. There's a lot of rumors with, FIFA and Formula One has announced that it's coming post-launch, so it's on the horizon. We hope. Someone asked, "What's the plan or the idea if the league, or if CHL gets crossplay? What is kind of the idea, really? I mean, it's hard to say early, but what would be the first thing you guys would talk about for crossplay LG?"
I think it depends on they introduce it as well, right? Like I think FIFA right now has it in versus. Like you can play PlayStation, you can play Xbox. So a couple different ways to look at it. Like if they introduce crossplay and they do like PlayStation teams can play against Xbox teams, that like drastically benefits obviously ESHL, like our NHL events. That's where that is a major impact for us. We could have 25 PlayStation teams, 125 NHL or Xbox teams play in the the Sharks Pacific Cup. But when it comes to the LGHL, it doesn't really do a lot for us at that tier yet. And it really depends on numbers. Like one thing to consider is like if it's that way, and PlayStation has really low numbers and Xbox has really low numbers. One thing we could do is, the W and the Q are Xbox, and then the ECHL and the OHL are PlayStation, and there's our CHL because you could have that for that Final Four. We could have that option because they can play against each other if they're whole teams. But it really depends on what EA does, when they do it, how they do it. There's so many variables there, right? Like, if they announce that crossplay's coming, but it's not coming till January, well, it's like we're in the middle of a season. There's not much we can do with that. And then we don't know if it's going to work, if it's tested. Or they can announce crossplay's coming for game launch, and then by game launch, it's like, we could have Xbox and PlayStation players on the exact same team, same rosters, which would drastically change the outlook for the LGHL. But it all really depends on implementation, like what they come up with, what they come forward with. Obviously, I've had some early thoughts about that after I read what FIFA's doing, and obviously you said like Forza's doing as well too. So I've got some basic ideas, but I'm not sure how premature it's going to be. NHL does seem to be a game behind everyone else. So if FIFA has that coming out, like say this fall, I wouldn't be surprised if it's NHL 24 before we see any of this stuff. So it's nice to think ahead and think what it could be, but I'm not going to get my hopes up and my fingers crossed until we actually know 100% what's coming and when's coming. So that's kind of where I see it. But again, totally depends on what they implement, how it works, how functional it is, and we go from there.
True. Agree. I didn't see anything in chat on this topic. Did you, Gazelle? I don't know. I haven't really seen much to vet through.
Nope, nothing on that topic. Looks like Big Mac's thinking. Are you thinking about adding a fourth line?
Not right now. Obviously, we could barely add enough. Like, we wanted to add an extra 18 teams. We couldn't do it. So a fourth line to me doesn't make sense at this time. Maybe in the future it does. Hard to say. But again, then it's, we're adding additional games in a week and kind of going from there. So I know one thing, Shorty and I met about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. We were kind of throwing around some ideas about how, it seems like at the NHL and AHL tiers, there's lots of desire to run, instead of a 9-week season, run a 6-week season. Instead of doing 3 times during a game cycle, do it 4 times during a game cycle. So it's roughly the same amount of hockey, but they're shorter seasons, which, may be better for interest level. And, if you're stuck on a bad team, it's not for a long period of time, so on and so forth. But at the CHL level, it's kind of the opposite. Like everyone really likes like the length of the schedule, likes the length of the playoffs. So I know Shorty and I have been bouncing around a couple ideas what it would look like, how we could implement it, so it like kind of saves the same amount of games in the CHL, but still have timelines line up, but still have shortened seasons. So you might see something like that in the future if we can kind of hash out all the what ifs and make the timelines line up. But right now, it's just like all that stuff for like fourth line and all that just kind of seems like very distant ideas, considering the game is so subdivided with the 4 consoles. And we might be another full game cycle away until we have the numbers back. It might not be until 24 when everyone's kind of got a next gen console. We're seeing that like 35 to 3,900 signups again. So we might have to wait for some time before we even have those discussions again.
Last question here about expansion. Someone had asked, what would be the roster? What like the re-signs, roster reset, et cetera, if the Q came back? How would that be handled? Adding the Q?
I would say that's all to be determined, to be honest. Like, I guess, it's gone so many different ways before. Like we've done like no re-signs, brand new, fresh start. We've done it where it's like everyone gets to re-sign and the new teams that are added can re-sign from the pool of players that didn't re-sign in other teams. Like we've done it kind of both ways. So it's kind of wait and see what we want to do with that. And maybe better just to go complete reset and call it a day.
Yeah, like I know for this season, I was gonna do OHL, WHL gets 3 days to do their vet amateur resigns, and then close it for those teams, and then the QMJ would have had like the remaining day and a half, 2 days to do their resigns off of all the leftovers that are left. They still have the same timeline to get the resigns picked out. They just have a less crunch time to get it on the site and like approved.
Sounds good. I don't know if they have anything else in chat they want to ask real quick before we move on, but that's pretty much all the expansion kind of questions, like looking forward with the CHL that I have on my end. I don't know if you guys want to address anything else about it, but we can move on if you want. No? Okay, we'll move on. This is a big one. This might take a few minutes here. These are probably topics you guys have each seen in management chat. I'm sure you've been pummeled with these questions. First one we'll go over. There's no specific question for it, but you're probably going to know it when I say it. But there's been a lot of. I've got some DMs. People sent me questions privately that want to, say the question out loud. But the RAVs, the CHL, I'll let you address that. There's some questions about that people have said, so that's kind of a topic they want to talk about.
Oh, you Buck.
Is that sorry?
RAVs to see this season. What are we doing?
Same
To me,
rules.
it's status quo. Like I don't think there's
Yeah.
any change, any discussion to change of that whatsoever.
No, we're not changing it.
And it's one of those things too. Where it's like there's plenty of notice to sign up. Like sign-up's been open for a month. There's no reason why our veteran players can't be signed up on time to go through the bidding sessions. And it also we've seen season after season after season where these players are signing up late intentionally, and it kind of really throws the whole balance of everything, undermines the bidding system that we have in place. So to me, it makes no sense to really change that at all.
Yeah. Depending on sign up numbers, we can talk about playoffs because that's a different, like with TC numbers and all that, and the amount of people that are ineligible to play in the playoffs. We can talk about that later. But as of right now, I feel like 8 games in a season is more than enough as an ECU. They get 5 on one team. If they get traded, they have 8 total.
Because even too, I just looked at the back end of things. Right now, if I sent an alert to the entire sign-up list, it's over 2,000 players, and that includes roster players, right? So it's like we only need 1,800 for everything we have, so we're already there.
Yeah.
So I don't really see.
We hit numbers like yesterday morning, I believe.
So pretty much all this is gravy moving forward. So I don't really see any need. And like I said, there's been so many negative aspects to allowing those players to play that over the last couple seasons, with how competitive CHL has been without them, it makes no sense to me to really deviate from that rule set.
You said the numbers over 2,000. That's how many PCs per team this upcoming season?
I think we're at like 5 right now, but we still have plenty of time before CHL bidding. We have over a week.
Once NHL bidding goes live, the sign-up numbers are over 150 a day.
Yeah, pretty much. Because all the amateurs can sign up, and
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised too. But by the time CHL bidding goes live, we'll be over 2,500 players.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Move on here to the criteria real quick. Sports fan 14, thanks for the follow. This is a huge topic as well. I'm sure Gazelle, you recently came AHL commish, and you had some new criteria get set foot in the AHL. CHL criteria I know has been questioned, so this is kind of your chance. I mean, how does it come about with you guys sitting down and looking at this criteria? What's kind of the plan? People want to know, because the main question is, why is so and so in the C and I'm getting forced to the A, et cetera, vice versa. So I'll let you guys kind of address how you go about doing that in your meetings and what goes into it and why you did this and that.
Go ahead, Brody.
Yeah, I don't like the amount of effort that goes into this stuff is pretty extensive. First and foremost, like it's majority of it's statistical based. So it's based off of like career stats, success. And every single season we add layers and layers of depth to it. Like, there was for a long period of time, there was something that we didn't even look at. We said, okay, well, a player's got success in an upper tier league, so we don't want them in the CHL, but we never looked and said, well, does a player have, exceptional success in the current tier? Like if a player's only ever played in the CHL and they're averaging 4 points a game and, winning 90% of their games, but they've never moved up, perhaps it's time for that player to move up. We've added things like, obviously, if they win a Memorial Cup, you're done, you move up. And even this season too, we denied a player from AHL management because they weren't good enough. We had a player that applied for management that was below, a 500 win percentage in the CHL, and we said, no, like we don't want you to move up to the AHL with a below 500 win percentage in the CHL. Like get better at that tier, then move up. So looking at it kind of from both angles, and again, it's going to be subjective. There's going to be people that agree and disagree, but the overall goal is simply based on the fact that we're looking to balance everything out, keep things as competitive per tier based off of career history as best as we can. It's the same reason why we don't let veterans and amateurs skip bidding anymore. We want them to go to the bidding sessions. So by the time if a player's picked up in CHL bidding, because they pass through AHL and NHL bidding, so by that point it's like, okay, well there you go. And again, like I said, every single year we come up with something, we look at something and kind of go from there. And one of the things I've challenged the staff to do is like look at the rules or look at the players that we have and the guys that we have right now who are quote unquote top tier managers.
Yeah.
use them as a measuring stick. If they're a measuring stick, what do their career stats say? What do their career stats look like? And kind of use that to gauge where we want to draw the line. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the managers, there's always going to be someone that is the best. Like this guy is the best defenseman and a manager. This is the best forward and a manager. Like there's always going to be that. And regardless of how the criteria goes, there's always going to be someone that's going to be better than someone else. So with that being said, we're trying our best just to kind of keep things as rounded as possible, take as much quote unquote judgment call out of it. Obviously, we do have some wiggle room in there to allow to say, okay, no, we want to pull this guy back based on this, which is something we can do and we have done. But the overall process is to have it kind of black and white. This is the criteria. This is what's going on, and this is what we're going to do. And even too behind the scenes, there's like some pretty incredible Google Docs that are like in the works that literally can pull stats off the website that kind of show who's eligible, who's not eligible. It's been really good for us to use that stuff to kind of see and kind of use that as a measuring stick. And again, it's a living document. Every single season it gets looked at. It's one of the hottest topics we talk about as staff during the off season. As soon as the playoffs start, it's pretty much the same thing as like, this is one of the first things we're all going to look at to make sure that we are on the same page, that we can make some changes, address some issues from seasons past, put it out, move forward. And that's kind of where we're at with all that. I don't know if Buck, you want anything else to that, but
Yeah, so like I built a lot of this criteria talking with Brody and like going to Cuddy, and Cuddy was doing a lot of the average research of like the average player and did like calculations for like over 4 seasons for the entire CHL on both consoles, and kind of just like average base like, yes, we know Xbox might be a little bit stronger, so we're gonna up the numbers a bit because, well, if they're too good to play on Xbox, then they're definitely too good to play on PlayStation for the most part at the CHL level, where the talent drops off a lot more. Yeah. So there's like Brody said, it's extensive work that we did to build this, and then like we said, we only added 2 for this season, and it was basically if you have a win percentage over 85%, whether you're a forward or defenseman, you're ineligible in the CHL, and like just a single season, not like overall, because the most recent seasons are the most important ones, anyways. If you're too good to play now, you're too good to play now. If you were too good to play like 6 years ago, it might be a different story. This season, we forced up 6 managers because their win percentages were either 100% or they were like 95%. So yeah.
yeah, I know. Like I said, a lot goes into it, and it kind of needs to be that way. At the end of the day, it's like, there's so much negativity, so much perception at the top tier that no one wants to go there, right? No one wants to play or manage at that tier because of egos and players and those type of things. So they get comfortable. And obviously, the CHL is a little more accepting. There's people here that have been here for a long time, so they want to stay here, which I understand. We built a pretty good thing. The AHL's in the same boat. The AHL has that same experience, right? But at the end of the day, it's like eventually it gets to a point in time where we need the cream to rise. We need people to go up. We need to make some change. We need to bring in new people, and that's just the way it is. And there's going to be some hurt feelings, which is understandable. But at the end of the day, it's like it comes to a point in time where you become a big enough fish in this pond that it's time for you to move on.
Yeah.
And again,
Agreed.
it's not like we just simply said, you know what, like we're gonna fuck this guy or we're gonna screw this guy over or we don't want this guy here anymore. Like this is hours and hours. And like some of the documents that have been put together, like some of the Google Docs are some of the most extensive Google Docs we actually have on the website. Yeah. So there's so much effort and time have gone into this. And again, I challenge anyone else to put countless hours into this to come up with something that's better. Because that's the thing too, is all this is open. Like people have ideas, send it to us. You want something changed, send it to us. Because again, we make changes every season, and a lot of the changes we make are based off of suggestions people made. Because one of the things that we talked about is we never had a criteria saying like, well, what if you're too good for the CHL based on CHL stats? Because again, there's players that have never went up, but they have, again, like Buck said, he said they forced up 6 managers and all of them had over a 90% win percentage. Well, it's time to go. If like that's a lot, that's really high. So maybe it's time to move on, right? So.
Like when I vet managers now, literally we have sheets where we just straight up type in the LG username and it pulls up everything for us, whether they're in the management listed or not. It gives us the link to their profile and it like pulls up all their stats, auto calculates win percentage, points per game, everything based off forward, defense. So like You type in a name, bang, you get the info. All you got to do is click his profile, see if they were banned last season or if they got a capital ban in the last like 7. So, so when we're like, oh yeah, he's ineligible like right away, and they're like, how do you know? It's like, well, we check.
I think the other thing to people have to consider is the fact that like a lot of people that are getting forced up are people that got comfortable, right? So they're very comfortable here. They know they can win here, and they're scared to
Yeah.
move up because they're scared to not be as successful as they were. But I think there's so many live in such a world right now where people want like instant gratification. I want to be like this now. Where it's like, when you're in the CHL and you have like a 97% win percentage, obviously you're going to be successful next season and next season and next season. But when you go to the AHL, people don't want to work for it. You're not going to be as known as you were in the CHL. Some people may not want to play for you because you're new. That's just kind of the way it goes as you work your way up and get a name for yourself. There's some of the top players that have ever played in this league started in the CHL and they worked their way up, and now some of the best esports players we have, or some of the best NHL managers we have. They started down here, they worked their way up, and sometimes people just don't want to put the time and effort into to make that way up. But the AHL, like I've played many seasons in the AHL before, it's super competitive. It's a great community. They're really good games. And once managers get themselves established, it's easy to have success at that tier that you had in the CHL. You can't expect to just do it overnight. Like Rome wasn't built overnight. People have to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, very, very well said. I mean, I think I said in my Discord, but there's plenty of CHL players that can play at the AHL level. It's just about getting that group of guys around you that can make you excel in your craft of the game, whatever your skill is, defense, offense, whatever your skill is. You got to be associated with those group of guys that will make you good, and that's just what the game promotes. This game promotes team play. So
yeah, chemistry's everything. Like everything. Like I bet you, like the top. Have you looked at like the top win percentage since in NHL 22 from the CHL team wise, and he took like the top 8 teams in the last 3 seasons or last 2 seasons, not including this one, and we moved that exact team straight up in the AHL, same roster. Every one of those teams would have like great success in the AHL. All those teams had chemistry. All those teams had like really strong managers. And it's just one of those things that just takes some time, Maybe you're not going to win right away, but a lot of these teams are going to be in the playoffs, in the mix, in the hunt, competitive every single night. And that's just one of the things people have to understand.
Yep. We've seen it in the past. Chemistry.
Absolutely.
Runs.
Absolutely.
Look at season 28, Manitoba. 4th line won the Calder, went up with half the team from Calder to the end, won the Stanley literally the next season.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to flip the question upside down. Someone had asked, you were talking about people kind of scared to go up to the end, maybe don't want to play with the egos and, vice versa, whatever. Opposite question. So upside down, there's a question that I got asked. It said, would Xbox CHL ever consider mirroring what PSN, I don't know if they still do it or did it, about if you miss playoffs multiple seasons in a row as management, you were not offered management the next season due to you having poor management skills and making the experience of others contrary to what LG is aiming for.
I did it
I think
this
it's
season. I did it this season. I put Godly Hayes on no management list. He missed playoffs 4 times in a row with Niagara. No management listed. Poor management skill.
the big thing too is what people have to understand is that's always been the goal that we want to accomplish on either side. The biggest thing with PlayStation is it's like, they're in 20 seasons where we're in 40 and we're 42 on Xbox. So the desire to manage at this stage of the game, especially with the community that's, been around for as long, is not as high on Xbox as it is on PlayStation. They'll have 12 vacancies on PlayStation and have like 60 applicants. So it's very easy on the PlayStation side of things this early on in the game to be able to say, okay, no, we've got 60 applicants. We've got 10 vacancies for sure. Let's relegate the bottom 5 managers we had based off of we have the guys to fill the spots, right? That just doesn't happen all the time on Xbox to allow us to be able to do that. But that's always something we have to consider. Obviously 1 season's not enough unless it's like really, really bad, tons of complaints, a lot of personnel issues, so on and so forth. But ideally, we want the most competitive teams possible on the ice, and we want to be able to do that. And if we have quality signups of managers every single season, it's something we could literally do every single season based off of who signs up for the league and signs up for management positions. That's what does it all, is the fact that we need the applicants to be able to make those changes. Same goes with the NHL. I've done it in the NHL level, many, many years ago when we had the number of signups, so we were able to relegate people, but it's all based off of applications and how we have, and it's not as simple as, well, we got 35 applicants. That's great, but how many guys are not coming back. There's a lot of guys that don't return, which is part of it. There's also a lot of guys that put their name in the hat, and then we go to them, and they look like great applications. We go to them, and they deny it. They turn it down. I don't want to do it anymore. But their application stays there. So to the community, they go, well, why didn't they give so-and-so ownership over so-and-so who's currently owner? Well, it's because we did, and he didn't want it. And now those are things that are never discussed, and people don't really consider. But yeah, it's literally, this is all application based. We're not here to force anyone to do it, which makes sense. It's all volunteer work. But if we get better quality managers, it gives us an opportunity to put better quality managers in place. Because I tell everyone this every single time is we put, regardless of who applies, we put the best applicants in the positions every season.
I guess someone just asked it real quick. I'll ask: is that you had said the issue with God or the situation with Godly Hayes? Is that going to be criteria, or is it going to be situational moving forward?
Situation. It's always situational. And you got, like Brody said, you got to take it. It's case by case. You got to take everything into account. Like some guys just consistently build bad teams, like Golly Hayes, but like they don't change anything. They bid on the same players every season, expect the results to change. Like there's guys who know what they're doing, who've had good seasons, and then they've had a couple rough seasons in a row. Like we're not just gonna bench them because they built a couple bad teams or the results just weren't there. So
yeah, like I said too, it comes to a point where we spend so much time talking about criteria, and the criteria has always been you're too good to be here. But one of the things I've always said is what happens if you're not good enough to be here, and that's something I want us to start considering more. The issue is that's solely application based because at the end of the season we've got 42 teams. Let's say we only have 25 returning owners and we have a lot of vacant spots to fill. Well, that's priority. So we have to fill those vacant spots first before we can go to the list and say, okay, now I want to cut these 5 guys, and I have the ability to do that because I have these applicants. But at the end of the day, like it's in the back of our head about what happens if you're not good enough? Like what happens if you haven't had a playoff team in 4 seasons? What happens if you're below a 40% win percentage in your 4 seasons as manager? Like there's a lot of those things we have to consider. And again, it doesn't mean they're done forever. It just means that they need to kind of like reconsider what they're doing and move forward.
Gazelle, do you want to bring that up, or you?
Yeah. So there was a question that was asked in chat when we were talking about forcing guys up, and the question was, why is it that Bogs can force themselves down through bidding?
So that's a good question. That's a really good question. And I think the easiest answer is when you're a manager, when you choose to be management, we're giving you the opportunity to directly benefit your seasonal experience more than anything else. Look at how many players go into the league and demand to be traded to a certain team because they don't want to play on a certain team. Well, when you're a manager, you get to pick who you play with. You get to bid on the players you want to play on. You solely control your experience when it comes to how your season goes. That's one big benefit of being a manager. I think with the amount of work that goes into staff, the countless hours, how thankless the position is, in my opinion, it's one of the only things that I can offer the staff at this time to help their experience when they're not doing site work to be as enjoyable as possible. That's one thing. I think it's just a perk of the job, which is something that I think is super beneficial. The other aspect of it is too, what people don't consider is I think it's valuable to have certain players that are on staff to be in the tier in which they're staff for. So if Buck signs up as a goalie, he's not going to make it to CHL bidding.
No.
But I think there's a benefit for him to be connected to the community to be part of CHL bidding. It wasn't that long ago where we were trying to make all these changes to the CHL, and other media shows and other popular people within the CHL community were constantly calling me out about how I'm disconnected from the CHL. I don't know what's going on. I want to make all these changes to the CHL, but I have no idea how the league runs. So I literally said to them, okay, no problem. I'll go to CHL bidding. And no one believed that I would do it. I've done it for 5 seasons straight.
Yep.
This is the tier that we want to make some changes at. This is the tier I'm playing in right now. So there's a lot of benefit to that. I wanted to implement 4 games a night, which we did for 1 season, and no one wanted to do it. I thought it was a great idea. So I signed up and I played that season in the CHL. I played those 4 games a night so I could experience it and not just sit back and go, this is what I want to do. Let's make it happen. I was one of the people that said really early on, this doesn't work. This was a great idea on paper. It doesn't work because I got to experience it myself. There's so much benefit to be able to handpick where those staff members go. And I also, again, so to me, those are the two big reasons why I let it happen. And again, we're going to bidding. We're going to bidding. That's a big thing, like, yeah, you know what? There's some guys that are good players. We'll use Buck as an example, good goalie, or myself, I have almost 3 points a game in the CHL. We're going to bidding. That's open market. 42 teams can bid on us. Our values could be completely through the roof. They could be whatever they could be. We can go to wherever we can go. That's completely different than, allowing someone who's too good to manage at a zero value. Like, everyone needs to understand the management criteria is put in place because we're basically deciding what the contract value is for zero. And that's based off of player performance. But when you could take one of the best players in the world, and then they're a BOG and they sign themselves up for CHL bidding, they're still going to bidding and they're still going to go for 10, 12, $14 million. They're still going to have market value based on bidding sessions, which is, in my opinion, apples and oranges comparing to have someone who's too good and a free value on a team.
Yeah. Like, I know for like me, I get a lot of hate for it because they're like, you're an NHLer, you should be playing in the NHL. But like, being the commish in the CHL and playing in the NHL, the communities are so different that the disconnect on what's going on at both levels is huge. Like, I don't know what's going on in both leagues at the same time because the disconnect level, because the community is different, the game style is different, everything is different. So I go down. Like, and then I got, people are like, well, you re-signed, that's not fair. It's like, well, would you prefer that I go for $4 million as a goalie? Like,
but and the other thing too is you went to bidding. Everyone had an opportunity to bid on you. That already happened. I think the other thing too is like, it's at the CHL with so many new players and so many new managers, it requires more attention to detail at this tier. And I find when you're not playing in this tier, you're not as approachable either. Everyone thinks, oh, he's an NHL player, I'm not going to bother him. And I still even kind of get it to this day where there's managers who don't reach out until I reach out to them. I'm like, oh, I don't want to bother you. And it's like, no, dude, like, I would rather you reach out and talk to me than make a mistake that's going to screw everything up. That's the way it should be, right? And to play at this tier, I think it's the best way to do it. We're going to bidding anyway, so we're going to be at whatever market value is going to be, and all 42 teams have an opportunity to pick us up. And at the same time, it's like, it's also not super beneficial to us because we're likely going to be overpaid. And there's a lot of teams that shy away from staff members anyways because they don't want staff members on their team because they don't really know who we are, or they don't really know how it's going to be, or they're scared that someone's going to say something stupid in the Discord and they're going to lose players over it. There's a lot of like misconceptions about picking up staff members. So it's not all glamorous like people make it out to be.
Yeah. And like, at the end of the day too, we want our teams to succeed, right? So like, me re-signing at 1.2, 1.5 as a goalie, or you this season re-signing 2.75, like, it's more beneficial for our teams at the end of the day for all of us to have a good time if we do re-sign at the end of the day. Because, for example, Brody, you went 2.75. Summer season, if you didn't re-sign, you're likely going 4+, just because the talent level's not there. I signed up at 4. Last time I went forward, I went for 5, and I hadn't played forward in 4 years. So,
again, a lot of it's perception, which is understandable. But at the end of the day, we're doing what we think is best, and I think it's justified based on what I just said about why we allow it, and that's just kind of one of people want to control their fate, sign up for staff or be managers. I tell everyone that. You don't like the way things are going, you want more control, be staff, be a manager. You can have way more control in those situations.
Yeah, that's very well said. That's the reason why I signed up as a goalie last season and went to the C, because being in the A, it's hard for me to do media and really understand the C. So it's the same situation for media and same for you guys being staff. Once you're in that community, you understand it a lot better. So, real fast, Mr. Janik, thanks for the follow. And then, a nice gesture from Cardona. Thanks, Cardona, for gifting a sub to Schlarky. I appreciate it very much, Cardona. Anything else you guys want to address about that? There's 3 more topics on this list. They're lengthy ones too. I mean, I know we're beating a dead horse with some of these, but it keeps getting asked. So
that's all good. Let's go on. I think we can move on though.
I'll just say it. Playoff Avail, another one that got a rose. I'll let you guys address it if you want, but that's a huge topic again. And that was the main subject. So
I think I've killed this one so many times over, and people just don't understand. I think, and the biggest thing is like, I've said it so many times over the past 3 years that like the playoff rules are older than I am. They've been around way longer than I have. They're probably the original rule set from this league from its beginning. And I have yet to hear an alternative solution that ensures that all three lines play in a reasonable amount of time that's open to open player availability that isn't so tight on a schedule. So 2-2-3 players have to play one game in the first four. Well, the first four games are spread over 2 days. So if you can't play Sunday, you can play Monday. Perfect. There's your one game. And then to be able to play your second game by game 6, well, that's Wednesday. So there you go. You have that extra day to do it. Like a lot of guys like the 3-3-1 because it gives that, oh my God, the hype for game 7. It's awesome. Yeah, but you also require like more than half your team to be available on Sunday. You need 2 full lines available on Sunday. So if you have a couple guys that can't make it, you're fucked. And then you pretty much need your entire team available for Sunday and Monday. Again, now you're running into situations where it's like, what if guys can't make it? Now you're really limited on who you bid on, how your team set up. You know, you have to be deeper in your training camp for ECUs. There's so many other considerations that people don't think about. You know, and all the teams that go deep and go far and are successful have deep training camps. All the teams that don't have deep training camps. Yeah. And it's one of those afterthoughts. And I've said it over and over. Like these playoff rules are the original. Like they make the most amount of sense. And I've yet to see someone come forward with an alternative solution that makes as much sense as these current rules do.
I think the only thing people really want to see is an increase to potentially 3 out of 7. And I think that's okay. But like you and I have gone back and forth about this for so many times because I bring it up to you and it's just like, oh, idea.
Again, though, it's playoffs. So
do you think the guys would want to show up?
So
and if they're not available and they have issue, and even too, all it takes is, you know, it happened to my team. So the team I played on last season in Kitchener, we had 2 guys only available Sunday because of work related issues. They were 9 for 9 the entire season. They were only available for Sunday, so that totally screwed the lines up for the entire series, right? So what's the alternative? Do teams just want the ability to not schedule that player so they can use an ECU? Or do they want the ability to issue strikes? Like, I don't understand what the ask is here. And if it's to use an ECU or you need to use an ECU or they're pissed they have to use an ECU, then to me it just comes down to level of depth, which, again, I've said for as long as I remember that the CHL teams need to be deeper than 17 players. Like, you have to have backups for backups for backups. Like, you need to be deep because you never know what's going to happen. Guy could quit, this could happen, work could happen. You may need a superstar left winger for a game because your top line guy can't make it. And it literally comes down to availability. And I just don't understand what the ask would be.
Here was the quote I'll read you from the question thing. This is kind of, I mean, I know we addressed it last season or the last show as well, but it's mainly the big push. I'm sure you guys hear it in management chat and your DMs as well, but it's just you're required being less available for playoffs than you are for the regular season percentage wise. And quote, the common issue is you guys stating this rule is like this for dual console players with the staggered game times through games 1 and 4. And it's perfectly feasible to change minimum to 3 for both consoles. And then someone had also a follow-up. Would they consider avail to either at least one night per week of 3-3 avail with existing 5-9 minimum, or at least 6-9 avail? I guess instead of 5-9, increase playoff avail to line with this. That's kind of off topic, but the first part I'll let you answer if you want to address the common issue with the dual console issue.
It's less than 4% of the players. So we stagger game times for the off chance that there are people that are, but the availability never had anything to do with that. Because the game times are staggered for that anyways. So that's kind of unrelated in my opinion. Again, I don't understand the ask. Like, why do they want more availability? Is it because they don't want to use ECUs or because they want to issue strikes? Because if a player has to be required for more games than they actually, so here's the thing. Your best player is 2 of 7 availability. And the minimum now 3. Are you not scheduling Mr. strikes? How many teams are doing that? I'd say none of them are doing that. So if teams are having issues with players showing up or spiting them and like, I'm only going to sign up for 2 games because that's all I have to sign up for, then the issue isn't the playoff availability. The issue is your team internal. The internal workings of your team is the problem. Because again, it's playoffs. You've made it this far. These teams should want to continue. They should want to be successful. They should want to do all these things. So I don't understand. The availability can be like 0 of 7. It shouldn't matter. It's the playoffs. People should want to play. So again, I'm not really understanding what the ask truly is, because I don't see an issue here. Because in the season, so the biggest thing in the season is we require 5 of 9 because it's more than half, and it was tough to schedule because some players would give the same amount of availability. So to get out of games played. So to make it easier for the managers, we up that, because in the season, players don't want to be there. So they give poor availability, don't show up, all these issues. That's why it keeps getting higher and higher and higher, because we have an issue of people who don't want to play. In the playoffs, I don't see that as being an issue. People want to play. So it shouldn't matter what the playoff availability is. And even then, in some situations, the playoff availability is not going to matter. Again, if your best player can only play game 3, they're probably going to play game 3 and nothing else. So there you go. Now they're 1 of 7. So what was the whole purpose of changing it to 3 of 7? When you're just gonna pick and choose when you're gonna apply that rule anyway. So again, I truly don't understand what the ask is here and why they want it to be increased in the first place, because it's completely different than the season, and I don't really know what the problem truly is.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen that people have really posted about in this Discord, and I've seen people talk about it, it's just you're required less in the playoffs than you are the regular season. And I guess some managers don't like the fact that they can, I don't know, I wouldn't call it getting egoed, but players can choose when they want to play and whatnot, and it hurts that manager. So that's kind of the argument, is why is it less an ask in the playoffs and more of an ask in the regular season is the main argument I'm seeing. So
Yeah, what to me is irrelevant, because if you build a good enough environment for your players, they want to be there and want to play, then it shouldn't matter. I don't see that. I just don't see that happening. I think it's super rare in situations where teams are being egoed in the playoffs. Like, you worked your whole season to get there and they want to be there. I'm not saying they're a lower tier team, but again, I'd say the favorites in every single series likely don't experience this as a problem. And then the teams that have poor availability, like my team as an example, poor availability, they're going to work around that poor availability to use roster players and not use ECUs, because we had a very weak training camp. So again, having a minimum of 3 games availability doesn't change the fact that we had 2 guys that were only available for 2 games, and they were going to play. We weren't going to strike them, do anything about it. So to me, again, I don't know why they want the increase. And if it's just because the perception is it's not the equal amount of commitment, well, how many guys are actually below 2 games availability or below 3? I don't think it's that common. Yeah. I just don't really see this as a major issue that they keep projecting as it is. To me, it's just one of those things where it's like their perception to some managers it's not an equal amount of commitment. Well, it's like, okay, so what? It's the playoffs. Your players should want to be there and be available to play to win. That's why they play the whole season. And if that's not the case and you have an ego issue, well, then there's a bigger problem than what the playoff availability is. Because even if I made it 3, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get egoed, and it doesn't mean that a guy's not going to give you 2 games of availability. And then what are you going to do? If he's one of your top players, you're just going to sit him and then not play him because you don't have to, because he gave you poor availability and use an ECU and ruin your shot at the playoffs and you're to continue on? Or are you going to play him based on his availability so you have the best chance to win? So what are you going to do? Yeah,
true.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
This is what I've seen.
No, and I get it. I just think my biggest thing, it's the next time we sit down and do this, we're going to talk about this again, which is great. But I think it's or people listening, if there's more to this that I'm not seeing, why don't you just send me a message? Because I'm not seeing what your problem is.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have more info you want to submit, I mean, their DMs are open. I'm sure Brody and Buck and
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys send it what you want. I mean, they want to hear, so hear your ideas. So if you guys are good to move on, we can move away from that. Quick question, real quick, about NHL draft. It's been mentioned, asked, has there been, why is it 3 rounds? Can it be reduced to 2 due to the talent pool? I'm assuming is what people are asking.
I've brought it up a few times that we need to bring it down to 2, but we couldn't just do that in the middle of a season because the assets are already given out for the next season. So the draft picks for the NHL, they're already given out right at the start of the season, so we can't just change that mid-season.
Yeah, it's something we could do, but at the same time, we could just keep reducing salaries.
Yeah.
Which we've done this season again. So then the picks are worth more in different areas, right? So, and then it's one of those things where it's yeah, we can do that, but now we're locking prospects to the CHL longer, because a quick way out of the CHL is via the draft. If not, you're playing 2 full seasons as a prospect. So from a manager's point of view, yeah, they want that. But from a player's point of view who want to move up, that may not be ideal.
So I guess is it something in consideration, or it's kind of we're not really looking to that right now. Is
Oh,
kind of what
I
they're
would
asking.
say I'd say it's on the wish list, but it's near the bottom.
So the way I see it right now too is if we keep it prospects at 48 games, we could potentially start thinking about the 2 round thing. But we've also been like discussing, making prospects you need to play 72 games to promote yourself to amateur, which will then increase the prospect pool overall, and then it would make more sense to have the 3 round draft.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways to do that for sure. Because again, it comes down to what's the ask. So do the managers want it in only 2 rounds because they want to keep players longer? If that's the case, we can simply modify the numbers on prospect status as well too. There's again, like Buck said, there's a couple different ways to skin a cat here. So it really depends on what the ask is and why it is that way.
Yeah, last topic here on this roster criteria. This one is not a direct question. It's more kind of just, can you explain the reasoning behind it? And it's due to avail with TCs. Let's say I sign up. I've been in the league a long time, or any of us have signed up, and we go to a team. We don't submit availability. You never hear from us. Can you explain why TCs are not required to give availability and can kind of just sit there and do nothing? Is there
72-hour strike window.
What?
That's even better. TC players who aren't active can be issued a 72-hour strike, and within 72 hours, they're removed from the roster. So if they don't give availability, you haven't heard from them, issue a 72-hour strike, send them a message. If they don't reply in 72 hours, file removal, they're off your roster. That simple. And the script used to place training camp players on your TC isn't dependent on your overall TC numbers like it used to be. So back before that was all changed, your overall TC number dictated how many random assignments you would get, which doesn't happen anymore. So it was advantageous to manage and vet and pluck your TC roster to ensure that it was only active players, so you could be at the front of the line to get additional random assignments. That doesn't happen anymore. So there's no real reason for those players to put in availability. But if they're not active, it's as simple as sending a message on the website, giving them 72 hours to reply. If they don't, they're gone. So there's 2 sets of rules. So it's a whole different rule. So that 72-hour removal warning is something we put in place to allow managers to simply prune their training camp whenever they need to. And that's a lot quicker than not putting availability.
Then you're constantly getting a flow of new TCs.
And then it's also the same thing too, because it's not a rule that applies to the players either. Like if you as a player don't put in your availability, it doesn't mean you're removed from the league. It means your managers can schedule whenever they want, issue strikes, then you can be removed. So it's 2 different sets of rules. So to say if a training camp player doesn't put in their availability, they're removed from your roster, that doesn't even apply to roster players. So that's why we have the 72-hour removal strike. That I'm assuming most people just don't understand that's even an option, which is likely why they let these people sit there. But again, it's one of those things that we continually preach and try to teach moving forward, so they can kind of learn and move forward. Because that's the best way to do it. Is what they should be doing is, as a manager, players are assigned to your roster. It's posted in your locker room on the website who the player is. You should be reaching out to that player, sending them a Discord invite, have them join, have them active. If they don't join your Discord invite, if you haven't heard from them, 72-hour window, if you don't hear back, file for removal, the player's gone. And then the nice thing about that too, they're issued a 1-season ban. And often when I look at the appeals during the season, often a lot of those players kind of go, hey man, I signed up for the league, didn't realize it, I'm active, I want to play. So those players, I just remove the 1-season ban. When they click the sign up button again, they go right back to that TC that they originally were assigned to, because it keeps their trace for the season. So it's a pretty easy system to follow. And what I'd recommend, this is the easiest thing to do, is as a player as assigned to your team, reach out to that player. In the original message you send that player, say they have 72 hours to join the Discord and reply to you, or they will be removed every single time. And if you don't hear back in 72, that's a removal. If you do, now you have an active TC in your Discord, and away you go. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion.
So I got a situational specific question here. I'll ask you real quick. But Gazelle, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I was going to say, I think that, a TC's activity on a team is directly reflective of the managers getting them involved, like playing club games with them, because I've been on teams before where managers have nothing to do with TCs. I've been on plenty of teams where managers are constantly trying to get TCs into games to see what they have. And TCs go inactive because they have no shot to play at all. Remember, the right to play doesn't apply to TCs, right? Because they're not guaranteed games. like rostered guys are. So playing club games with your TCs is a big way to keep them active.
Yeah. Luke's TV, thanks for the follow. So, Brody, this is a question for you. It came in. If an ECU agrees to show up in ECU for 3 games on a Tuesday, then he no-shows, why can't he be removed from the league like any other player?
That's a good question, actually. Brody?
I don't know if we lost Brody or not.
What was the question again? Ask it again.
If an ECU agrees to show up in ECU for 3 games on a Tuesday and then he no-shows, why can't he be removed from the league like any other player?
I would say if that was the case and the strikes were issued, I'd say the BOG would remove the player. There's nothing saying you can't do that. There's nothing saying you can't issue strikes to a TC player. So if a TC player has agreed to play and then no-show the game, you're issuing a missed game strike. After 3 strikes, you'd file that as a player, remove the player, be gone. So I think that's totally fair game. No one's ever tried it.
I think you just have to, provide the proof that,
Yeah.
them saying, hey, I will play, and then when they don't show up, and you show proof that you're inviting them or tagging them or whatnot, like, I think it's good enough for a strike, in my opinion, too. Good question.
Yep, that was just an anonymous question I got sent through Discord there, so they didn't want to post it. But
No, that's all good. That's fair. I think it's a good question. I just think it's one of those things where it's like rules don't say you can't do that. They also don't say you can do that. So it'd be very, very situational. But in a nutshell, if you read the rules really, really, really at the basic level, it says if a player no-shows a game, miss game strike, 3 of those in a week, see you later. So it's not specific to a roster or a training camp player. So I think it'd be fair game. That's as easy as us adding clarification to the rules that does apply to training camp players who don't show up. And I would agree 100%. That's like if that came across the desk right now and that was the situation, I would agree 100% that's player removal.
Yep.
This one's, I know we're at the bottom of the TC Avail. There was one question that it really didn't warrant a whole subject for it, but someone wanted to ask. Let me find it here. Will there be anything in place to prevent a CHL team losing 5 guys to call-ups? Example given, Seattle, Toronto Marlies last season was the question.
Yeah, no. It was like, what do you want? I don't really know what we can do. We give you player protection to protect players that you want. That situation we looked into, all it was AHL team was replacing their 3rd line. They played against a pretty solid line from the CHL and club. Ready for those players, call them up. That became their 3rd line.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what happened. They got murdered in a club game. So, like, who was that? And then one grabbed the ball.
So there's nothing. The way the system's set up right now, where all of the players in the CHL are randomly scattered throughout the AHL training camp, is the best system to prevent that from happening. So many managers want it to be direct affiliation, where the Toronto Marlies and the Kamloops Blazers are affiliates, so they can only call off that roster, but that makes the situation worse, and that's not going to happen. So it's one of those things where we've done our due diligence, we've given protection, but at the end of the day, it's like based on player status, those players can be called up. At the CHL tier, you're going to have to figure out a way to hand out your protection to the players that you want to keep. Bring in some new talent as a prospects because they can't be called up, and build a strong training camp in case there are call-ups. And that's the nature of the beast at this tier, and we've been preaching it for a very long time. And I've been on teams that had call-ups. It sucks. It really changes the thing. Like majority of my line last season got called up. It sucks. I almost got called up too at the very end of the season as well. It's just the way it is, and it's the unfortunate part. But it's why we keep preaching over and over and over again that your roster has to be deeper than 17. And if you want to avoid that, then have success, move to the AHL, move to the NHL. That's the best way to do it. But while you're a manager in the CHL, this is the way it is. This is the way it's always going to be. I'm not a real believer in constantly making it more and more and more comfortable, because again, we run into a situation now where no one wants to move up already. And if by moving up means there's more comfort and there's less probability of players being called up, then that's awesome. But that's enticing people to move up because they'll have more stability in the roster. Then that needs to be that way, so people are having desire to move forward, have success, move forward, have success, move forward. That's the way this whole league needs to function. rather than just build all this comfort of the CHL tier so all these guys can kind of stay here and be comfortable all the time. That's not ideal for the overall league growth. I think we've done a good job and balanced it all out to ensure there's some level of protection. It's a lot better than it used to be. But I still think at the end of the day, there's so many other factors that have to be considered. One being the fact that when you're in the CHL, these are the cards you've been dealt. Two being the fact we've given protection for players that allow you to keep players on your roster. And I think overall being able to build a roster that has a strong training camp in case of replacement players is the way to do it. Those are the three best suggestions I can give people, and kind of roll the dice and go from there. Because there's some seasons, some teams don't have any call-ups. Other seasons, some teams lose some best players. It's just the way it goes.
Hughes 43, thanks for the follow. Last question, Brody. On last time we did the show, you brought up a proposed idea that was in the works of the site about availability being on your profile. Is there any update on that, or any time frame to expect it?
Oh shit, what was that? I had a meeting with Triz not long ago. So it's on our list of things to add. Currently, it's low on the list, but the nice thing is on a weekly basis, we have access on the staff tools on a weekly basis to show what people's availability are. So what I think might happen is I might get we're pretty lucky this season. Like I said, we have a lot of guys on staff that are like incredible with the tools. So we can either run that script on Thursdays. So here's week one's availability, run it on Thursdays, and then get the guys that are good at Google Docs to grab that data, throw it into a doc, make that doc public. Or we can copy and paste that information into a thread. It probably won't look as pretty and be as streamlined, and make that public. So I think what we're going to do this season is I probably should have told Fleury this before I said all this, but I'll probably sit down with one of them and figure this out about how we can get this onto a doc. The doc will be posted on the forums. We'll update it every Thursday, Friday, so teams can see. Last week McDonald was 6 of 9, and it unfortunately won't give you like I was available Sunday, Monday. It couldn't play Tuesday, but it'll give you a rough idea of I was available 6 of 9 last week, or I was 9 of 9 last week, or I didn't give availability at all on the website. And I think that information being public to start will really help with a lot of trade issues and kind of help with some of the shady bullshit that kind of goes on behind the scenes. But for now, that's kind of phase one of what I'd like to do to kind of keep that stuff as public information to really help protect managers and players. So good question. I'm glad you brought that up because I actually had to write that down. I'm going to have to deal with that this week.
Yeah. This is the last miscellaneous question. There's one more topic, but I'll ask you this because I'm going through these questions and some of them aren't like a part of any major topic. But this one, I know you made a site push or a site alert about it. Let me find the exact question. It was, I know a lot of things got changed with Discord messages being altered. Can you talk about that briefly, the new situation? So someone asked that, I guess.
No, that's a good question. So,
Oh man.
So I'm trying to figure out the best way to kind of answer this because it's kind of confusing for me. I know Shorty kind of really laid it out for me. So basically, unfortunately, like I don't know how you guys use Discord, but obviously I've got Discord on my phone. That's kind of my go-to, and I've got the app on my computer. Kind of easy to use when I'm on my computer. But in situations where if you load up Discord through a browser, you can kind of go in through the browser settings and manipulate messages, make people say things they didn't say, so on and so forth. So basically, what it's done. And apparently this happened in GWC as well, too, because I got a lot of messages from players that were kind of on bans from GWC and, spoke to some higher ups from management that were running that tournament about kind of some certain things to consider and had some pretty high level conversations. But so moving forward, basically what it means for us is if someone submits a complaint to us and it involves a Discord screenshot, if that screenshot is from a browser, like it's from Chrome or it's from whatever, we're not going to accept it anymore. Because those are the screenshots that can be manipulated. And we have ran into a couple situations that have been manipulated in that sense. So we've pretty much we've disqualified screenshots from browsers for Discord being eligible to be used as proof because of that modification. So basically, the easiest way to kind of do it, in my opinion, is obviously mobile screenshots, really simple, really quick, really easy. But almost everyone. I have an iPhone. I don't have Android or anything. But it's one click of a button and you can record your screen. So if something comes up you have an issue with, it's kind of quick. Here's recorded my screen, which I'm not video editing a video from my iPhone to make someone say something they didn't say. And then obviously scrolling over a profile, ensuring that that's the Discord link to the person talking, so on and so forth. Is the direction we've gone. And that's just to kind of tighten up some things. We've had situations that we've kind of come across recently where it's like, actually, I dealt with one today where a guy was like, I didn't say that. It's, it's edited, the photo's edited, blah, blah, blah. And then, the guy that submitted the complaint got us everything. He had a video capture. He had the player's actual Discord handle, so on and so forth. And Buddy, who was kind of appealing it, tried to be a little bit smart and say, "Oh, that's not my Discord name. Here's my Discord name." But he just changed it after the fact. It became public to us, sort of thing. So basically, in a nutshell, keep it really simple. If you're going to submit a complaint to us and it's going to be from Discord, it needs to be mobile's the best way to do it. We're not going to accept anything from an internet browser from Discord moving forward. That make sense?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, yes. Someone had just asked that, so they were just curious. I think you had made
No,
a
it's a really
push and
valid.
they didn't see it. So
it's a really valid question for sure. It's something I need to put on the forums for people to remember as well. But it's definitely super important.
for sure. Do you guys have any other comments you want to say about the roster criteria? There's one more topic left, so I'm not sure if you guys want to say any final thoughts here on this.
No, I am good with that. I think it's one of those things. It's so subjective. Everyone has opinions, but it's one of those things where I think in the off season we're always looking to make it better. So if people have ideas or things that they want to add or things they'd like to see us add, then I think that's the time to kind of come forward and say, "Hey, I'd like you guys to consider this. I'd like you guys to consider that." And we're always open to suggestions, or why didn't you think about that, or this guy's too good, and we can look at that specific player and go from there. But I definitely think it's something that it's going to be a living document that's going to constantly be updated as we move forward every season.
Sounds good. Gazelle, you good?
Yep.
All right. Last topic here. TC League was a big topic last season. I'm sure you guys know in management. So they want to know what's the future for TC League in the summer. And there's also a question about mentorship, if it's kind of going to be the same thing that I know Fischetti had done with kind of getting people on probation to get them teams again. Would that be considered? But I'll let you talk about TC League for summer if you want.
So we haven't had a steady plan as of yet. What we were going to do was right before NHL bidding starts. I think it's tomorrow night, correct, Brody?
Yeah.
I was going to be polling all the CHL managers, and I was going to put a poll in the community, seeing what they want the TC League structure to be like. Whether it's they want to do those, the sign up for each game slot Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or if they preferred doing the tournaments where the managers can organize it, because then that gives me a little bit of hey, we want the managers to run it and do a tournament because that was more fun. Okay, so then the managers can have a heads up like, hey, you guys are going to be in charge of getting 6 TCs together, and if you can't get 6 TCs, you can combine with another team, try and put in a team, have a tournament. Like, you guys get trophy points out of this. Like, I don't know. Last season we had 14 teams at one point, but like out of those 14 teams, I think 31 were combined teams. Playing, having guys there.
I'll just ask the question. I know people are going to know real quick, and either one you can answer it. Is it being considered that it's going to be required from management? I guess that's a question they want to know this season.
I could see to the managers, be required to get their TCs involved because it's part of, roster management and it's part of being a manager.
I say this every single season to staff in the off season about, I bring this up because in my opinion, this is one of the most important things, especially if we're considering expansion moving forward. And it's one of the things that managers hate because it's extra work and it's on off game nights and, it's this and that, which I get. But at the end of the day, you sign up to manage at the CHL tier, which is used for development and your future. I'm not a huge fan of locking 42 owners into a spot and saying, oh, by the way, now this is something that's required of you. That should have been part of prior to you accepting the role at something. But I think there's a lot of value in, we need this to be successful and we need buy-in from managers. It's not just a staff-driven thing. We need you to help as well. But that being said, it needs to be it doesn't have to be a ton of commitment to make this work. And it needs to be something that started as soon as the season starts. Because the last thing we need is week 3 of the CHL season, us try to start this up and 70% of the training camp has already lost interest because they haven't played in 3 weeks. Yeah. This is important that this needs to start immediately. We need support from our managers to make this go. And some, I've seen it kind of both ways. I've seen managers who don't want to support this because they just don't give a fuck and they're lazy and they're nearsighted. Fine. Maybe in the future when we have opportunities to cut managers, those will be the ones that we cut. I've also seen managers not have a ton of interest in doing it because they do a really good job themselves to manage their own training camp, which is I have a little bit more respect for because they have a pretty similar team and a pretty solid training camp. But I've also seen that some of the teams that have some of the strongest training camps really promote this because it promotes it's got a bragging rights as well too. If you have a really strong team plus your training camp is walking through everyone, obviously you have a really deep team and that's important. At the end of the day, the goal is always going to be participation and then competitiveness. We always want the maximum participation throughout all tiers. We want these players, especially if they're newer players, to experience what we have to offer so the future continues to be bright, so we can continue to add more teams and kind of grow. That's always been the goal of the LGHL, and it's something that we need to consider. And, managers are a direct representation of the league itself, what the league stands for, what the league believes in, what the direction the league wants to go. Managers have a direct contact to all of us to kind of voice opinions, give ideas, help move the needle, help steer the ship, all those things. But at the end of the day, I think it's got to be a collective effort from staff and managers to ensure this is successful. And it's something that we need to do and we're obligated to do as a group to ensure that those players that don't make a roster have a decent season or have an opportunity to make a roster in the future.
Yeah, very, very well said. The main question I got from it was, are they going to require us to do this? That's the main thing. They didn't want to feel that they're going to be required to be on trying to gather for Wednesdays and Thursdays, and that was kind of the main bulk of the topic. So,
but even too, I think so. This is what I think what could be done for that though is if we're going to run something on Wednesday night, like a tournament, say, we could let the managers know on Sunday. Hey, listen, there's a tournament Wednesday. Tournaments on Wednesday night. Submit your roster and make one of those guys a captain. Like one of your TC guys can run it for you. He's the one that gathers. So you've done your job as manager. You got the six together. You delegated someone to be in charge for that night. You've done your job. That's no different than, your GM and AGM are playing Tuesday. You play Monday, and Sunday night you set the lineup and say, I need someone to get the lines together. If those guys don't get the lines together, you did your part to get someone. You assigned it to someone to do it. That's half the battle is, delegating the task to someone who wants to do it. And there's probably enough guys that are willing to do those things, that want to play, that want to be organized. And if you get those people together in your training camp, there you go. You're laughing.
Teams that were successful in playing it last season, which was like 9 teams consistently, all had TC captains.
And again, it's like when we say required, I don't like my expectation's not for the managers to be on Wednesday night being like, where are you? My expectation is for you to, when we put it out on Sunday, to get 6 guys by Wednesday and assign one of them the duties of being in charge. That's my expectation. And to me, that's easy to do. You're setting your lines for the week anyways.
And we have a TC Discord, so like the managers are welcome to go in there and like if they can't field the team of 6, they can go and be like, hey, I need a 6th guy, and then just fill from that.
Yeah, again, the expectation is it's the same thing. I expect the lines are done by the lines deadline for the week. If this happens, so every season near the end of the season when teams are having forfeit issues, managers are always panicking. Well, I can't be on every single night, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's not the expectation. The expectation is simple. Set the lines for the week. If your players don't show up, issue strikes, hold them accountable, move forward. This is very similar. My expectation is there's an event coming, set your line, assign someone the task of being in charge of the line, make sure they know how to put stats on the site, and be done with it. That's what's expected. And to me, that is not a big ask, especially when you're able to do it during regular business hours, which is Sunday through Tuesday. Simple.
One idea I have seen people have thrown around was, could there be any idea of the AGM being responsible for that? If you don't have a captain, putting it on the AGM, that's been thrown around. I've seen the last couple of seasons about being in charge of TCs.
To be honest, I would love to do that because it holds value to that spot that so many teams like to dump a player in who does absolutely nothing. But I think at this point in time, it's too late to make that a requirement. Again, these players have already accepted a role. That wasn't part of the contract they accepted. Unless we're going to completely redo, AGM acceptances, I don't think that's something you could really do at this time, but it's definitely something in the future that could be considered. And again, it's
Oh,
very simple. For an owner, if owner doesn't want to do it, tell your AGM to do it. You run the team. They can do it. Again, you're taking 6 players, getting them available so they can play on a Wednesday or Thursday night. It's a really easy task.
Yeah, I think you answered that great. I know the mentorship I put up there. I know talking about WJC with Fischetti running that. There was some management correct that were kind of, what's the word, probation-ish, I guess, trying to get off, trying to get teams back. Is that how that worked this season? Is there any thought to doing that with TC, if TC got its own league or anything, making it kind of a probation area for guys to show what they got and kind of get back on the good graces of site staff, so to speak?
So, we've been using WJC as a way to get guys off of, you know, the no management list, because realistically, the timeline, the commitment from WJC is 4 or 5 weeks. We want to see if you're able to handle, the stress of being a manager and all that. So, getting it done through there, where it's more newer guys that don't make playoffs, like the lower tiers, it gives you a better chance of us being able to be like, okay, this guy can compete, put out in a team that should be able to compete in the C again. So this season we really wanted to use that as like the base to get people off, and I think we had like 8 owners on probation for WJC, and that's how it worked out.
Yeah, I think there is. I think the idea of using it in training camp could happen, but again, it requires. There's a whole level of depth to that as well too, with permissions and stuff that we could kind of make it work. But I think, in my opinion, I think that the best way to kind of the training camp league to go is make it so it's like, there's representation from all 42 teams. They play in a single elimination tournament, Friday Night Puck style, and that's kind of managed in house. So there's no real room to offer a mentorship or a program to do that. It's also kind of like it's not really the same either. Like it's not the same structure as what a season would be. It doesn't really put them in the same situations. Like Buck said, that like obviously managing and the World Cup or World Juniors is kind of similar structure to what the season would be. So I think it's a decent idea. It would just have to be really retooled in order to make it beneficial and work that way. But again, to me, I think the future of the TC League makes a lot of sense of just being direct representation of the CHL teams and then kind of going from there.
Yep, very well said. I'm out of stuff. If you guys have any final comments, I mean, that's all the material I had and all the questions I got from the community. So anything you guys want to address, feel free real quick as we about to close out here.
Personally, I got nothing else.
I guess we could give it a minute, see if anyone has anything in chat.
Yeah.
They've been saying some stuff, but I mean, it's just kind of them talking amongst themselves. We'll see. If you got a last second topic or question real quick, something light you want to ask, we kind of covered everything, but anything you want to ask, feel free. Right now is the time.
I think one thing I want to just mention too, people don't really look ahead sometimes, but there's a week break in the middle of the season. So the way that Canada Day and the 4th of July fall, that's actually a week off during the summer. We had the time at the end of the season to make it all up. So I think it's like week 3, maybe week 4, week 3 of the season. There's actually a whole week break to kind of incorporate those two celebrations. So there's no league games that week at all.
Yeah, end of week 3 going into week 4. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it turns out that it's like Canada Day. Well, the 4th of July is a Monday.
Yep.
Because my birthday's that Tuesday. So yeah,
3-day weekend. Let's go.
Yeah, so that whole week is kind of like there's no LGHL that week because 4th of July being on the Monday. It just kind of was like, yeah, you know what? Rather than try to move games around and have headaches, let's just take the week off. So this is the first time we've ever done that. We have the time to do that, so I think we're going to benefit from that as well. So that's people that are kind of like, summer season, I don't know if I can play. Just kind of FYI, that's a whole week off, so kind of helps out. Yeah, because Canada Day, I think, is that Saturday or that Friday or whatever. So that whole week is kind of off. Basically, it's like from June 28th, I think, until look here, June. Yeah, so from June 29th till basically July 10th, there's no games.
Yep.
Wow.
Wow. I'm not sure I'll do with my time then. Well,
All right. RIP my team.
Yeah. I guess that's it. I don't have anything. There's some, miscellaneous questions coming through. I think Buck answered it. But bidding starts what time tomorrow night?
9.
9
And
Eastern.
we're still doing the primetime bidding.
Yes, that's
Primetime
cool.
bidding. Can you explain that for them real fast, really quick? If people may not know what that is. You brought it up.
So primetime bidding is like from, I think it's like 8 a.m. till like 2 a.m. The bidding timer is 6 hours long, and from like 2 a.m. to like 8 a.m. the bidding timer is 8 hours. So if a bid is placed between 2 and 8 a.m. the timer
I
is
think
8
it's
hours long, something
I
like
think it's
that.
10 to 6. I think it's 10 to 6. I think it's
Oh.
10 p.m. to 6 a.m. It's 6
Or
hours.
something, yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's a shorter window. So
Yeah.
it's a shorter window for people to expire kind of thing. And then so that's how bidding is going to be. Again, the bidding list is synced by Triz, and it's whenever he does it. So he never does it like the final sync for the bidding list is never done any earlier than like 9:45. So anyone who's kind of last second waiting, make sure you sign up before 9:45. Because again, if he 8:45. If he syncs the bidding list at like 8:50 and you sign up at 8:51, even though bidding doesn't go live till 9, you're not eligible for bidding. And we're not adding you. We're not going to fix it. So, stop with this like last second, hey, because again, none of us have access to hot drop people in the bidding. We can't do it. We don't have the access to do that. And once he does the final sync on the bidding list, there's nothing we can do about it. So, we've been asking for tools for seasons to give us the ability to do that. The system actually used to do its own sync, but its own sync takes so much time that it might only sync at like, 8:55 might not be enough time. So maybe 8:50 is the last one. So just make sure you're signed up with plenty of time to ensure you're going to be in the bidding session. Because again, if not, there's nothing we can do about it.
Sounds good. And NHL AHL is the following week, correct? It'll be next Sunday night is puck drop.
Yeah, so they're going to start early like they have in the past couple seasons. So yeah, I believe the 12th is that Sunday is the opening night for NHL AHL. And then we are the week after in the CHL.
Yeah. Preseason. Woohoo!
Sounds good. Gazelle, you good? Anything else you want to say real quick before we close it out?
Nope, we're good to go.
All right. Make sure you guys sign up tonight or in the morning. Obviously, don't wait, like Brody said. So go sign up. Bidding starts tomorrow night at 9 o'clock in the Inn. Wish all you guys the best of luck in your seasons. Brody, Buck, Gazelle, appreciate you guys sitting down here for about an hour and a half and talking to us and answering some questions. You guys are amazing, and thank you for all the work you guys put into the site. I know it's a lot, but it doesn't go unnoticed. So appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Chat, thanks so much. You guys are awesome as well. Thanks for tuning in. Be back soon, sometime in the season. Not entirely sure when, but until then, you guys take care and have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you in season 42.